Hi, my name is Cass. I came from a very long way away, and I'm here to stand for women's sex-based rights. For the first 9 months of our existence, we all share a body and a life with our mother. We can hear her voice and feel her heartbeat. After we're born, we turn when we recognize her voice, and the skin-to-skin contact and breastfeeding connect us to her safe embrace for the rest of our lives. This attachment and wholeness between mother and baby is a beautiful, comforting, and necessary thing that all healthy societies center, honor, and protect. But a materialistic and woman-hating society is not a healthy society. It splits apart men from women, women from themselves, mothers from babies, labor from its fruits, work from home, humans from other animals, humans from the rest of the environment, men from their own humanity, and even the atom itself, which, if you've been to a movie theater lately, you can see the results of that. Misogyny and materialism deliberately target the mother-child bond, since it stands in direct opposition to these sicknesses. Many social practices specifically separate mother and child, such as cry it out for babies, enforced away from home schooling, male abuse of mothers, custody arrangements that interfere with breastfeeding, and forcing mothers to work long hours outside the home. Medical practices, especially those that happen during and after birth, include enforced drugging, denial of skin-to-skin contact, and treating birth like a disgusting medical emergency rather than a sensual and magical event. All of these cause deep damage to the birthing mother and baby. Patriarchal medicine, just like pornography, is all about splitting and compartmentalizing women's bodies. After trying everything else, the patriarchy has taken aim at the mother-child bond by inventing commercialized surrogacy, a dangerous cross between compartmentalization and greed. After 9 months of bonding, babies have been removed screaming, the birth mother's not allowed to go and comfort them because they aren't legally the mother. It's illegal to separate dogs from their mothers until a few weeks, but for humans it's often the very next day. In this scheme, motherhood isn't defined by connection, by what the baby needs, or by who will and won't be hurt by the separation, but by abstract, hyper-technical concepts such as legal parenthood and contribution of genetic material. This is not to say surrogate or adoptive parents themselves are unloving. In fact, I personally know some who are just as good, maybe better, than most birth parents. The problem is with the commercialized surrogacy arrangement itself, since it usually requires the destruction of one relationship in order to form the other, by definition. Another problem with commercialized surrogacy is the dehumanization. A Japanese man is said to have created 13 surrogate children, whom he barely saw, for the purposes of running his business. Deadbeat daddery with a sprinkle of capitalism. Love it. Women and babies are treated like products in an environment where couples can choose traits like attractiveness, intelligence, or certain race. Not really the kind of unconditional love a baby needs. Sheila Jeffries writes of an Australian couple who ordered twins but abandoned the baby boy because he was sick. If you need me to explain why that's wrong, you're too far gone. Babies are not meant to be commissioned, ordered, or designed. They grow from us, always with that connection, but sometimes unpredictably, which you could say is nature's way of making sure all babies are loved unconditionally. When you interrupt that unpredictability, you interrupt this closeness by making a baby not a someone you accept on their own terms, but a something you have complete control over. Commercialized surrogacy allows misogynistic men to acquire babies without having a relationship with a woman, just like prostitution allows them to do with sex. In both scenarios, relationships and women are considered dirty, boring work, and human connection is painted as something to run from. This practice also means no mom around to protect the child. 2 men commissioned a baby boy from Russia. They started abusing him shortly after birth. They took pornographic pictures of him, and then they took him around the world for others to abuse. Non-white cultures, such as African cultures, seem to be specifically targeted for surrogacy, in spite of, or perhaps because of, how family-oriented they are, and more to the point, how poor and desperate the women are. This practice of severing the baby from its mother is especially heinous when considering how enslaved Africans, who were not only considered property, but according to Suzanne Forbes Veerling, were considered stocks and bonds, had their babies ripped from them in the Americas. When rich white male celebrities use poor African women's wombs to acquire the children they probably see as property, commercial surrogacy exposes itself as a form of reproductive prostitution, pimping, and slavery, and has been reported in extreme instances to even involve trafficking and gestational camps. Many buyers make sure to use separate woman egg donors to make sure that no one woman has a claim to being the baby's mother. with women now being breeders who have gone from the frying pan of being owned by a husband to the fire of being owned by a contract or company. With accusations of coerced sterilization being added to the mix, it becomes clear that these are just new ways to control women, including and especially poor women and women of color. There have been claims by Native American women that they've been pressured to sign sterilization contracts while in labor, which is similar to natives being tricked into sign land treaties while being drunk. They say authorities have kept their babies until they agree to sterilization, and some women even wake up from appendectomies, missing their uterus. This is basically genocide, and the babies that would have been born to these patients are part of the stats of missing and murdered Indigenous women. The fact that commercial surrogacy and sterilization, like prostitution, are pushed onto poor, non-white, and powerless women is proof that these are not healthy things. Ironically, all of these different and disparate attempts to compartmentalize women are part of one unified toxic whole. One sword cuts 1,000 necks, but then, in its blindness, it cuts itself. The end.